Good morning, everybody. Welcome to International Women's Day. Welcome to CWU Live, an event here where we want to talk to you about some of the brilliant women across the union who have done some astonishing things to keep the union going and to promote the union in the workplace, to build the union in the last 12 months. Delighted to be joined by Head of Education, Equality and Development. I think I've got that right. Kate Hudson, how are you doing, Kate?
Whose title's biggest, Chris?
I think it's yours, yeah.
I'm good. I'm all good. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you with us. So the format is really simple. So we're going to be speaking to our panellists. I'll introduce them as we go, because obviously you can see on screen we've got a number of panellists and you might forget their names by the time we get to each one. So I want to make sure that everyone gets the sort of rightful promotion they deserve. So I'll introduce them as we one at a time as we do the sort of contributions from our panellists this morning. But before doing that, before getting into sort of the bones of the session, Kate, I thought it would be appropriate to give you a chance really to set the scene on International Women's Day. So over to you.
Yeah, so ultimately International Women's Day is a time to celebrate and highlight women's achievements. And ultimately that's what this session is all about. We've seen women come through our union movement. We've seen women in this be at the forefront of this dispute, our disputes, whether in telecoms or whether in our postal sides, and leading the forefront of change. And today we want to highlight that, celebrate that, and just take a moment of time to talk to some of the women who've been leading from across the CWU about their experiences over the last year or so.
Thank you. That's brilliant. And one of the things we were sort of really keen to do, putting the session together, Kate and I, was make sure we got like a real representation from across the union, sort of like obviously constituency-wise, business-wise, but also all levels of the union. I want to start with, though, the current president of the CWU, Karen Rose. Karen, if I can, ask you to come in now. I want to talk to you. There's been a raft of huge contributions from women from across the union movement and in the CWU in the last 12 months. But in BT, it seems a little while ago, but we had our first national strike, Bala, and first national strike in BT Group in 35 years. You were central to that campaign, first of all, going back to Count Me In, and then going through the campaign to win the industrial action ballot, and then ultimately right at the heart of the negotiations to deliver a successful conclusion for our members across BT Group. So I'm going to give you the chance really to talk a little bit about that, Karen.
So, yeah, thank you, Chris. So, look, for the whole of the kind of 20 odd years that I've represented CWU members, or represented my peers, I should say, in the CWU, it's been an absolute honour and a privilege to do so. But with that comes a fair amount of responsibility. And responsibility is something that I've never taken lightly, because you have, in representing people, you have a raft of different diverse views, opinions, wants, needs, all of those things. And those are all something that you have to take into consideration along the way all of the time. So in the disputes, or leading up to the dispute that we've just had, 35 years of reasonably good industrial relations in BT. I've been involved in that for the last probably 22 years in some of those national negotiations. And actually, it has been good industrial relations, and we have been able to negotiate our way through the different challenges that we faced, I suppose, along the way. This last time, it was very different. So in 2022, we just couldn't come to a reasonable conclusion on pay, or we couldn't reach a settlement that we believed that was fitting of what the members deserved. So we started a campaign. We had already kind of built a campaign behind some of the issues that we were having, which was the Count Me In campaign that you've just mentioned, Chris. And then when we couldn't settle and couldn't reach an amicable conclusion, basically on pay, we then went into a campaign, which was the pay campaign. And that ultimately led to us having a ballot for industrial action. But all along the way, what's really important is understanding, I suppose, as I said earlier, the different wants and needs that our members have got, because in BT is a diverse membership. So whether they're engineering or desk-based people working in Openreach, whether we've got people in the call centres, whether that's in consumer EE call centres, whether you've got people working in enterprise who are desk-based, or the engineering workforce in enterprise, you've got a whole plethora of different people. We've got our digital networks people who do a lot of the technical stuff in the background. They've all got a diverse range of jobs. So trying to understand what it was that those people were thinking and what it was that we could do in order to understand their views and opinions was quite a mammoth task. And I just do feel as if it was a bit of a roller coaster ride on times, and other times it was like racing around a Formula One racetrack, because you were trying to keep up the speed, and at the same time you were trying to deal with pitfalls, the ups and the downs. What ultimately is something where I talk about the responsibility that you have to take into account is that you are that person who is putting forward those views, making those representations to the company about what it is, the CWU membership in the background, the members that you're representing in that particular case, what their expectations are. And they are so many and varied, that is a really difficult thing to balance. But it is something that we have to do. And coming to the conclusion, when we came to the conclusion of the negotiations and ultimately after a really, really hard slog, after taking strike action, after the absolutely fantastic support of the membership out there on the picket lines, all of those people that took part in this industrial action and all of those people that went out there and did their bit in terms of raising the profile of the campaign and creating the leverage that was required for us as negotiators to go in and get a deal from the company, that was absolutely brilliant. And as negotiators, we could not do that without that background support from the membership. We could not do that without those people that have taken the industrial action and have been out there on the picket lines and basically making the campaign a success. But what it ultimately comes down to is you reach a point in negotiations when you know that it might not be everything that you want, but you know you're not going to get any better, and you have to make the assessment as to whether that's good enough. And I would say this time, no different to any other time in 20 odd years, that is most probably the most difficult thing of all. The most difficult thing of all is actually making that judgment call about whether this is the time to settle, whether this is good enough, whether this is something that we can accept on behalf of the membership. It's a judgment call. Personally, I think we did the right thing. I think the ballot, the consultative ballot that we then had, which ultimately showed that 70% of our membership cast a vote in that ballot, and it was overwhelmingly accepted. So I think that it's been, it was probably the toughest negotiations that I've personally ever taken part in, probably the toughest dispute that I've ever personally taken part in. But I do think that it was brought to a successful conclusion, and that is absolutely thanks to the CWU members, both women and men, that were out there doing their part in the dispute in order to give us the leverage that we needed to win.
Some really good points there, Karen. And I noticed two key words that came out for me was varied and balanced. And when we talk about balance, I think I must point out as you're not only our president, you're a negotiator in the dispute, you were also chair of our national executive, so many roles that you had to fulfill throughout that time. What advice would you give to anyone who does hold more than one role, and how you actually make sure that you're committing and making sure that, you're varying your time across the board as you go along?
So I tell you something, I'm going to tell you something that somebody said to me once, right? So a long time ago, I was a mother, a wife, I worked, I actually, kind of kept the house running. An awful lot of people did that or do that today. And what somebody said to me once was, when I said, I couldn't possibly do all that because there's too many things at the same time. And they said, yeah, but you already do that now, because they pointed out the things that I just said. You're running a home, you're looking after children, you're juggling a full-time job, you're doing all of the extra activities, you're arranging birthday parties, outings, all of those things. I actually think that you almost get used to juggling. Now, sometimes it's difficult because you're almost swapping roles all the time, and some of the roles that I in particular have got are quite different from each other. So, you know, chairing a meeting or then going to take part in negotiations are actually quite different. But I actually think that it just becomes part of what you do, and something that eventually just becomes something that you take in your stride, because you just very easily switch from the one thing to the other. I actually think the more people have got the capacity to do that than realise it. And I think that if you switch it and look at it in a domestic situation, then everybody probably realises that that is something that they actually do.
Thanks, Karen. That's brilliant. And I'm sure the members have picked up loads there. We'll come back to you shortly for some sort of closing words of inspiration to our members. But I want to come to Shelley Banbury now. Shelley's on our national executive. Shelley, you've been out doing dozens and dozens of gate meetings, meeting the members, getting the vote out, getting people to support the strike and everything. And also, you've been working on our peer-to-peer texting system quite very prolifically, may I add, thousands and thousands of our members. So I wanted to see if you could give us a few words of wisdom in and around that, Shelley.
Oh goodness, Chris, it's gone bad already if you've come to me for words of wisdom. The dispute for Royal Mail has been extremely difficult this time round due to the nastiness and the personal attacks from the business on our members. So our gate meetings have been extremely key in engaging with the members. And I always believe a face-to-face conversation always works better than online or via a letter, because you get to hear and talk to people and understand what really impacts them and what affects them. But on saying that, some of the stories have been quite harrowing, and then it's the level of support we can then give to the members, to those struggling, their families, different things that have come up. But the text messaging system, I love, if I'm honest, I love any interaction with our members. Our members make this job so amazing and so worthwhile. And the text messaging is just something that I could do on top of everything else. So sitting in front of a computer, technology allows you to widen your horizons a little bit. And texting with the members when they were so key to the dispute, so understanding, showed that our comms and our reps were out there talking to them, because they all knew the importance of returning that ballot paper, getting that yes vote. And then so many of them, when you went back and said thank you for voting, was no, thank all of you for everything you're doing. So it was a good highlight to help and support you and know that you were on that right path. A bit like Karen said, trying to make sure that we manage their expectations, but ensure that we get the best deal possible for them.
That's great stuff, Shelley. And I've just got to ask as well, because you're quite right, this has been one of the most bitter disputes we've ever seen. And how have you dealt with the pressure? Not only, as you've just said, you know, interacting with members and meeting expectations, but, and I'm not looking for a little sneaky insight here, but some of those PE meetings can't have been easy as well. You know, when you've been talking through moving forwards and creating change through the dispute itself. How have you dealt with that?
Well, hopefully with a bit of dignity. There's sometimes I think that I've felt angry, frustrated. I'd say probably frustrated is my key word with the business, because all that they've done was unnecessary. The hurt and upset they've caused was completely unnecessary. The PE meetings, you know, I work with a wonderful group of people. We don't all agree. We don't always have the same views, but I think that's what makes the PE so unique. But ultimately, when it comes to making a decision, whatever that decision is, we stick together, and that decision's all of our decision, and we stand by that. And so far, I think everything and every decision we've made has been the right one. The difficulty I have, and I still have, is honesty. I really, really have a trust issue with the business at the minute. And that makes making decisions to protect and support the members a little bit more difficult, because you want to see that green shoot of moving things forward, but always in the back of your mind is, can you trust the people there are going to stick with that? And are they going to continue working with us? And is this bitter dispute going to come to an end? So I think working with fantastic people does make the job easier. I do have to say, I have massive thanks to my husband and my daughter I live with, because genuinely at the end of the day, some days are pretty damn tough. And without them, I think I really would struggle. They do make the day seem better.
Thanks, Shelley. That's brilliant, mate. And very apt, Kate, you asked a question about pressure, because I want to bring in now Joyce Stevenson. And Joyce is one of our 999 call handlers, also a CWU representative and stalwart. Joyce, though, I want to put it to you that, there was a point, and Karen talked about it earlier on, around the moments in that BT group dispute, but there was a point where, the union's executive took the decision to ask the 999 work call handlers to withdraw their labour during the strike. And that caused, not to put too fine a point on it, a lot of pressure from the media, from the company, and, and a certain amount of panic from our members. And we've got some brilliant spokespersons, and lots of them are on this call now. We've got people like Dave Ward and, Andy Fury and Terry Pullinger and Andy Kerr, can do a great job for the union in the media. But I actually felt, as head of communications, when you intervened, Joyce, I'm going to praise you now, when you intervened in this dispute, as a frontline worker, live on Good Morning Britain, there was a tremendous amount of pressure on you, and they would have been looking to effectively really, really skewer you and put pressure on you. You handled that so well. But I want to ask you really how you did that, how you handled that pressure, because I think we probably did the usual thing of giving you about 10 minutes notice that you were going to have to do it. And yeah, just talk about that moment and how important it was in the dispute.
Well, as I think I said at the time, I'd come off a night shift, so I guess I really didn't have too much time to prepare. And the interviewer had sort of said to me what she was going to ask, and I felt that it was really important to get across the emotional blackmail that the company were putting on to us, but also to turn it back onto the business. We didn't want to take industrial action, not just the 999 operators, but all of our members. But the business had put us in such a position whereby we had tried everything else. And really, I think the only thing that was left was a decision that was taken for us to be included in the industrial action. And that was it. So whilst it was the first time that I had taken industrial action in all the time that I've worked in BT, because we've always been exempt, I felt that it was a pivotal moment in the dispute, and absolutely the right one that we had to do. And I guess, like everything else, you just go into sort of autopilot, and you just deal with the questions as they're coming up. Try and keep calm. I can remember that morning it was blowing a gale, and all I could think about was I thought when you went on live television there was the makeup and the hairdressing caravan to sort you out, and we were getting blown away. But it's done. I've had my 5 minutes of fame. I don't want to really go down that road again. But, in the next round of pay negotiations, if it has to be done, it has to be done, and I'll be there.
Oh, Joyce, as always, I was going to ask you what advice you were going to give about live communications, but you've already answered it. I am going to ask Chris a question, though. Any chance of a wardrobe and makeup van, Chris?
I think I've under-promised you there, Joyce, and I've done you in, and I. But you were brilliant, Joyce, and from us in the comms department as well. Thank you, because it made. I mean, I know Karen. I might ask Karen to touch on it when she does a summary as well at the end. It was massive for us to have someone as skilled as you as a frontline worker, front and up those interviews. So thank you and well done. I want to come now to our Vice President and Chair of the Postal Executive, Jane Loftus. Jane, you've, as has everyone on the call, had some really significant moments in the last 12 months. Some of those Postal Executive meetings must have been really, really interesting. To be a fly on the wall would have been very interesting during some of those moments. Balloting, striking, adding additional dates, legal challenges, etc. And then, of course, a few weeks ago, a brilliant moment, the announcement of the ballot result up in Manchester. Once again, the members have backed the union. So some reflective thoughts, Jane, from you on those moments.
Okay, thanks, Chris. As the biggest reflective moment of the whole of the dispute is the fact of how we've changed. And that come about from COVID in 2020. Never worked so hard online to try and sort out people's health as well as the working conditions. And I think that's made a real difference within the Royal Mail group and how people work together. It seems to be a bonding. So I've worked for Royal Mail for 41 years and been active for 40 of them. But I've never seen the membership come together like this. So I've been involved in official, unofficial action, locally, nationally, both in my branch and that. So to me, it was an accumulation of all the things that we knew were going to happen. So when 2020 come, we just announced the ballot result. And Chris, you announced that because I was racing up a motorway trying to get home as we were all going into lockdown. But what it seems to have done is bring the membership together and bring the branches together. And I think that's helped us during this dispute because I've never seen the workplaces so united. And it's very, very member-led and rep-led where people are looking after each other. So I've had the privilege of travelling everywhere. Some of the places I've been on picket lines have not been announced, turned up, how's it going? And our members have been absolutely fantastic. And also, it gives you a good view because sometimes when you're in meetings and you're only speaking to a small group of people, to get out there and get on the picket lines and to meet people, go to AGMs, do branch meetings, etc., you start finding out really where our membership are at. And every time we've asked, they haven't been wanting. But we all feel the same pain. And Shelley expresses it very well. I've never known Royal Mail like this in 41 years. It's the most bitter dispute I've ever been involved in. And women have been impacted on that as well. You wouldn't think we had family-friendly duties already. It's like as if they'd just been invented last week. But what I've noticed is more women on the picket lines taking a role. And as I've said at every briefing, at every meeting we go to, if we can't rebuild this union with a future generation of younger people, this is the time. It means we've got to deliver, but it also means we've got to win. So when we did the last ballot, I knew we'd get past the threshold that we had to have 50%. But to actually see what the result was, knowing exactly how Royal Mail have tried to destroy the CWU in the workplace, to be able to then announce what the ballot result was absolutely fantastic because everyone was nervous because you're pushing doors, you're pushing things, and at any point the membership could say no. So I do understand financially it's hurt, personally it's hurt, but I think people have come together, women are stepping forward. And you can see that in other strikes as well when you look at the health service, welfare, teachers and that. There's a lot of young women coming into activity, challenging things. And that's what we should be encouraging more of. We didn't get handed these positions, we challenged them. And in some ways, even though we celebrate where women have got to, some of the issues now are stuff that you thought had been well and truly dealt with in the 80s and 90s seem to have reasserted, come back to the fore. So violence against women, the fact of people being able to wear what they want, when they want, all those sorts of things. And that's where I see the union having a role. We're not just industrial, we're political. But it does help when we all get together and we see each other and we unite. And that's been my overwhelming experience of. It's been a member-led dispute with the representatives, and we know loud and clear when we're doing things wrong and we've got things right. And hopefully we can get an end to dispute that makes us at the heart of the workplace again, but also rewards people for what they have done to keep this industry going. Because it's now clear that if management were left their way, they wouldn't want Royal Mail as delivering a public service for the customer. And everything you've done in comms and everything like that has all come together. So we need to make sure that all this activity enhances the branches, enhances the union structure, and that in some ways we help and assist people by being senior role models. Great. But I'd encourage anyone, take that first step, even if it's only you want to see what the union does. But if you want to be a sub-rep, stand up and say, yeah, if there's problems, there's groups of people who can help you, because sometimes it's not easy. Do you know what I mean? People don't like change, and people think, why should we vote for someone else and all the rest? But like everything, it's about organising in your workplace, delivering, and then us delivering nationally as well. So we're at that point where we need to close that deal, but it's got to be a good deal. And I'm sure our members will support us and will make sure that they have their voices heard. But I think in terms of branches and that, things have changed forever, and you need to get involved and make sure all that generation's coming through, because decent jobs for decent people that's what we want for everyone going forward as well. Thanks, Chris.
So, Jane, it would be remiss of me not to mention, not only do you chair the PEC, the Postal Executive, the National Executive in tandem with Karen, you also chair our conference, which can't be easy. Let me ask a quick question. What's the best part of that role, of being able to chair our overall conference?
Right, it's probably a bit different than most other people think. I'd gone to conference and I didn't like it. It was always about the top table, and literally it was really hard to even get to speak at some of our conferences, the way things were. So over years and then working with other people, I'd like to think it's about what is the chair there to do. Yes, we're there to make sure the officers are able to have their bit of contribution and their say, but also there for the democracy of the branches and the membership of the Postal Executive. And sometimes that clashes with the officers. So I'd like to think over the years I've got quite a good understanding with the officers and that, and we know what we should be doing. But there is no problem having major debates and making decisions, but the chair can make a difference to that. So conference is the same. It's really odd as a chair, and I don't know whether anyone else is like this. I can only judge how I do by the response of those people in the room. So if the response is good, I must be doing something right. But the other thing is, I realise some people are scared and nervous. It's overwhelming. It's your first time you've ever spoken at a conference, but someone's got something to say. And I hope I've been able to do that with people, make them comfortable, but even able to say stuff that the leadership mightn't agree. But we can have those debates. Why can't we? And that's the difference I'd like to think I've made, because I didn't like that when I was involved really early on in the union, and you didn't seem to be able to get a voice. Do you know what I mean? So you feel that responsibility. So it's great, and people can do it, and everyone's different at chairing. I could just read off the agenda and not say anything, but I don't think that's the role. I think the role is to make sure we have the best debate, the best decision making, and that everyone can speak. And that means encouraging people. We don't want no one scared that, well, I can't say that because, no one will like me, or it's not what the officer's saying. So I think I'd like to say I've opened the democracy, and that's the same with the branches. A healthy union is a debating union, is a union that mightn't agree with each other at times. But what we do is we unite because we're honest with each other, and we know what the crucial fights are and the disputes we need to do. So it's been a privilege. Some of the stuff I've managed to do, chair and where I've gone, everything like that. But I always like to think it's not just about me. It's people around me, bringing people forward, making sure people are encouraged and giving help and assistance to people who've never, ever done any of this before, because we were all in that place ourselves as well at some point. And that's what it's about, making sure there is democracy in the union.
Thank you, Jane. That's brilliant. And I want to talk about democracy in the union. Obviously, the union, national officials are really, really important, but the people on the ground, I think everyone would agree, particularly those in the workplace, are so integral to how we operate as a union. And our next two speakers fit into that bracket. The first one is Angela Whittaker. Angela's one of our branch secretaries. So, Angela, I want to talk to you and get your sort of view on your experience of the last 12 months or so, with those picket lines, with organising, a set of delivery offices in a mail centre within your patch and other workplaces, the ups and downs of the dispute, the legal challenges, the swings. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, and I know you'd have really felt that at local level, Angela. So, yeah, if you could give us a little bit of the feel for the experience you've had on the ground. And you need to unmute yourself, my friend. The perils of live television. There you are.
There I am. How long have you got, really? So basically, I've been branch secretary 5 years. So this is my first strike action, unlike the rest. So organisation is a big must in this. I have 11 offices in the Mouse Centre. So organising like reps meetings for each office, getting them together, keeping them informed, keeping them updated, to go back to their own offices to update their members, and also the Mouse Centre. And then obviously when strike action did take place, it was organising the picket lines, obviously with the attire and with the rain and stuff, so umbrellas and stuff, buying everything that for each office. I did go around every office every time we had one in the morning, and then go into the Mouse Centre in the afternoon, in the evening, to show support. The support from the members was outstanding. They were all on board. It was more like a jolly up having a barbecue, really, because there was all out there, all stood fast in the morning in the delivery land, and obviously again in the nights and days in the Mouse Centre. They just collaborated together, stood on the line, stood fast, and yeah, we all stood together. Organising that was kind of hard, but we did manage it within this branch. Then as the it progressed, obviously in Mouse Centre, Royal Mail was getting kind of aggressive and implementing stuff in the delivery lands. So it was kind of bringing the morale of the workers down, because they was thinking, it's things are happening and there's nothing like we're doing. But obviously doing the strike action and the CEO going on the TV and saying certain stuff, as it was progressing and the more information was getting out, the morale was picking up. So the picket lines was sort of like, again, getting a bit stronger, and more people was getting on the picket lines. As I said, organising the meetings and stuff, and keeping the members updated with what was going on was as again with social media, it was quite easy just to keep them informed. So it was a hard task, but we got through it. We're still getting through it right now, actually. As Shelley and Jane said, we're getting agreements, and we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel.
That's great, Angela. And I know you're a great branch secretary. I just want to ask the question. Morale has been low, and it's been tough at times through this dispute. And I completely agree with the point that you just made. Getting on picket lines has really helped with that. We've helped, with the collectivism and the show of unity and strength. But also, I think a couple of our other speakers have already mentioned, women seem to have got more involved with our picket lines in this dispute. Why do you think that is? And have you seen a lot more women come onto the picket lines in this dispute also?
Well, not just to bring the food, obviously, but they did. As there's more women in the offices now, I think the biggest thing for the women getting on a picket line was where Royal Mail suggested that they wanted the delivery land to work 3 hours later. So that sort of like got them really upset, because obviously majority of them being parents and not being able to pick up their children from school, you see that they was getting kind of frustrated. So I think they took their frustration out on the picket lines, and more did come on the picket lines, I think mainly for that reason, where they the hours would have been adjusted for 3 hours later. And as I said, also, I found in my patch, the women were making the food and bringing the food in. So I guess the men like that, really.
Thank you, Angela. And I think, everyone has spoken mentioned the number of women increasing on the picket lines. I think that was so visible in all the images and the videos we were coming forward. And actually, one of the things we should say is Amy Ash, a member from Wimbledon Delivery Office, who those of you who are in Parliament Square will be able to attest, made an outstanding speech. On behalf of members, a local delivery office member. She was going to be joining us today. She's also fronted a number of our videos brilliantly. So, we've had an absolute onrush of brilliant frontline speakers. Another one I'm going to introduce now is Rowan Khan. Rowan is newly elected. So congratulations, Rowan, unit rep in Sheffield CDO. I want to talk to you, Rowan, really about being thrown in at the deep end. I think I remember speaking to you early on in the dispute, and I think you were just like picking up some sort of assistant rep role, and then the next week we were out on strike, or you were doing a gate meeting and such, and your photos and images of the picket lines from Sheffield have been one of the standout things. I think you've done a lot of national media. You've joined up with the FBU, the RMT and everything. So talk us through some of that experience, mate.
Yeah, hiya. So I've not even worked at Royal Mail for very long, but I definitely got stuck right in with the union straight away with everything that's been going on. I think obviously most people, the first thing they'll do on their first day at Royal Mail is join the union, which I did. But the second thing that I did that maybe not everyone does is I went and found my rep straight away and asked them if there was anything I could do to help out the union, designing posters, handing things out, ringing around members. I was like, whatever, I'm there for it, I'll do anything. And then I basically just kept badgering them until they give me something to do. And the first thing they encouraged me to do was run for women's and youth officer for our branch, which I did. And these are really, really great roles within our union. And I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do in these roles. But I still wanted to do more. And as the dispute was starting to bubble up, I saw the industrial work that needed doing. And I thought, I want to be part of that. I want to help with that. And I think just because I'm young and just because I'm a woman, that doesn't mean I want to fight on youth and women's issues only. I'm also a worker, just like everyone else in the workplace, and facing the issues of pay and changes to our working conditions. So with the dispute looming, I basically made it my mission to go around our office, which is nearly 200 people, and speak to every single person one by one and get to know them and how the issues were going to affect their lives. And I checked everyone's contact details were up to date before the ballot, and anyone who wasn't in the union, made sure that we got them joined up either for the first time or getting them back in the union, so that we were all ready to go. And then things obviously just really started to kick off from there. So in the lead up to the summer last year, and it felt like we were having almost weekly gate meetings at that time, I'd done a little bit of public speaking before, and even in front of some quite big crowds, but I got asked to speak at the gate meeting, and that was something that it was just really different to anything I'd done before, because it wasn't just a rousing speech in front of like a sea of faces. It was me and my co-workers and my mates stood outside our workplace, and it was me speaking to 200 people that I actually knew and that I care about, and people who I'd listened to about what was going on in their lives, and I had to try and explain the nitty-gritty of what was going on with the dispute and the changes that were being proposed, and try and persuade everyone to vote yes. And obviously no one really needed much persuading. So we got that first ballot under our belt, and then we got the second ballot under our belt, and then we were building for the first strike day. And at that time we found ourselves with no reps in our office. So at the last minute I got asked to step in, I think it was a few days before the first strike day, to step in as picket supervisor. And that felt like a massive responsibility, because I'd never even been on strike before in my life. I didn't know what to expect, and suddenly I found myself organising the picket lines. And then all the banners and the placards arrived, and we got this huge big bag of pink high-vis and all the pink armbands. And then I went to find the green high-vis, which is for the picket supervisor, and the green armband. And I tried it on, and the high-vis was obviously meant for like some 6'6" tall, big, strapping lad, and absolutely drowned me. I looked like I was wearing a tent, and the armband fit around my thigh. And I just had the funniest feeling that I was stepping into these really big shoes, and it felt really humbling, also like quite intimidating. But I just had to remind myself of all the amazing people that I work with, and that I couldn't let them down. And that if I didn't step up and do this, who was going to do it? And also to remind myself, why shouldn't it be me who does this? And I'll never forget the feeling of that first strike day. I'd organised a rota, and on the first day, we'd had the early shift starting at 4:30 a.m. as the dispute went on. That got a little bit later. But as I drove up the road to the office, and I came round the corner, and I had my boot full of placards and flags and stuff to make bacon butties, and I just kept thinking, oh my God, no one's going to be there, no one's going to be there. And as I came around the corner early, there were already 20 people stood there ready to go. And my heart just swelled, and through the day more and more people came out to support, and the sun was blazing, and we were all together. It was amazing. And we just did that again and again and again for 18 days. And as it went on, the sun definitely was not blazing. It was freezing, and we were all stood around fires and all sorts, but we just kept coming out. And then obviously the other week, after being battered by management for months and months, we delivered another stunning ballot result. And it was that same week when we finally held an election for new workplace reps in our office, and the members put their faith in me and elected me as their new industrial relations rep. And the day I got that result, I just felt so honoured, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, to be elected to represent my class and the working class in this bitter fight, but also beyond that, is a role that I take really, really seriously. And at the moment, I'm still feeling quite daunted, but I'm gonna, give it my all and do my best, because that's what the members deserve.
And I'm going to admit, when I found out that you'd actually become an industrial representative, I've done a little crouchy robot dance. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm so pleased that you step up, and I think you'll be brilliant in the role. But as you said, you were also a young worker, and I completely agree with you, you know, not being put in or signposted to certain roles. You know, you've got the power. That's certainly there in the role that you've just picked up. But what would you say to anybody who's watching this that is thinking, especially a young worker or considering stepping up into a role? What would be your one little bit of advice that you would give them?
This is the message I was going to come back to at the end, because I think it's so important. But I think the main thing I've been telling myself, if you're thinking, you know, should should I, maybe I should wait a bit longer, maybe I should get a bit more experience. Well, with this dispute, it's now or never. Like, this is if you're not going to do it now, there might not be another opportunity to do it. Like, we are fighting for the very existence of our union, the existence of our jobs as we know them. So now is the time for you to step up. And it's just been amazing the way that all my co-workers have rallied around me. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing it on my own. I might not have worked for Royal Mail for very long, but it feels like we're doing this as a team. And yeah, I've stepped into this role, but we're all in it together. And the time I really felt that the most was when, you know, Chris mentioned I'd done some national news bits, and the scariest one was going live on BBC News, and we did live from the picket line, and they'd asked us to come on early at about 20 past, so we got all ready, and I had all my co-workers stood behind me ready in position with placards, and then they made us wait for about 40 minutes. So by the time I got on, I was like, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and the interviewer was trying to interrupt me, and I was just like, no, you're going to have to let me finish. I just felt so powerful just having all my co-workers stood behind me. So yeah, my advice would be just go for it, and like there's no waiting. We've got to do this now.
That's brilliant, Ryan. Thank you so much. And also, you're joining Joyce's campaign for more glamour from the CWU media appearances. They're leaving you and Joyce waiting. We're very sorry about that, mate. Such is the world of media. I want to, firstly, we're going to obviously give everyone a minute or so to sum up, but you know, should say, I think, you know, people will be really, really enjoying this session at this point. We've had some cracking insight from all of you, so I should thank all of you who have joined us. So I want to give you, starting with Shelley, if I can, Shelley, just a minute or so, just to sum up and any messages you want to deliver at the close of this session. Over to Shelley.
Well, firstly, Chris, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this session, and it's lovely to listen to everyone's point of view. But for me, there's two things really I want to say. We thank our reps, and we do that all the time. But I want to put out a big thank you to our members. They've been amazing. They've been inspiring. Without them standing collectively together, we wouldn't have had the power and the strength to be where we are today. And I do hope that the talks the officers are in really do move it forward, because ultimately the members deserve this. They've earned this, and that they should be absolutely thanked for everything they've done. But secondly, really for International Women's Day, as you can see on this call, there's some amazing, inspiring women in this union. And I don't think generally sometimes, not having a go at Chris, he does a fantastic job, but sometimes I think we get missed in branches. We miss women, we miss bringing people through. So a message to branches, and not my own, because I think we do it well, but if there is a woman in your branch who thinks inspiring, but maybe doesn't have the confidence to step forward, go and give her that confidence. Don't leave her sitting there waiting for her to build it up. Go and give her that confidence, bring her through. And if there's 10 women standing for a women's officer job, give all 10 women the women's officer job. Don't run an election. Don't bring it down to one. Why would you turn 9 women away? So if you can do anything for International Women's Day, when you're doing your elections, go out there, bring those women through, give them the courage, the support and the guidance that they need. But please, please, please don't turn them away. Bring them in, bring them into this family, because they're inspiring and they absolutely will make a difference to this trade union.
Thank you, Shelley. Absolutely brilliant. Joyce, I'm going to ask you for your closing words, if I could.
Thanks, Chris. And really just to follow on from what Shelley was saying, I had jotted down a few words that I wanted to make sure that I brought in at the end. And it's all about, for me, it's about succession planning, and it's making sure that we bring forward women that are interested, that have got so much to give the union. And I think our industrial action showed that. You know, we've got a lot more members who want to get more involved in the union, male and female. But we've got a lot of female members who do want to become involved in the union. So for me, it is about succession planning. And I always say to people, just remember, you're part of a team. You're not there on your own. You're part of a team. We're all here to help you. There's never a question that you could ask me that would be a silly question. Every question that you ask is all very relevant. And in this International Women's Day, I think we all have to remember that we're here to celebrate our achievements, but also to remember that the struggle continues.
Thank you, Joyce. That's absolutely fantastic. Jane, if I could ask for your final minute or so.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just to say, the cost of living crisis and what's going on around us, not only here, but across the world, puts women to the forefront and has stood throughout the past decade. And we need to make sure those women keep striving forward as well. You know what I mean? Because I do think there is something about, if you have more women in the room, the language, how we debate things and how we move forward is different. It's still strong, but it means there's a unity together, a class unity. And to me, it's everyone needs to celebrate their role in their workplace, but not in their family, and also across the communities they work in and the people they contact. So to me, it's about making sure during this difficult time with the Tories and billionaires running the country, etc., attacks in terms of how people have got to cut back. Most of that will fall on women who have to deliver not only for the families, but the workplace, everything. And we have to stand together and support each other and be strong and not fear other women coming forward. As Shelley said, I've always been one of those people. Why divide people? Why only say we can only have one woman and no one else? It's about a load of us all being there, being political, being active in the workplace, making a contribution. And we all do that. And most of us don't even realise we do that. So it's about making sure that we do say to each other, that's a great job you've just done there. It's about opportunities, Chris. It's like anything. Karen's in the room. Doesn't mean to say I wouldn't be in the room if that was what my role is during the dispute. Do you know what I mean? So we need to make sure doors are still pushed open, because it seems to be sometimes we say, well, we've got 3 strong women, don't need another 30, so we'll just concentrate on those 3. I just think that's so the wrong attitude. Embrace everyone, bring them forward, male, female, transgender, whatever. If they want to come and they want to join in, the socialists and etc., and they want to fight the world, and it starts in the workplace, I'm great. It might be a headache for us sometimes, but it's a welcome headache when you have people who are actually challenging you, and it should not be seen as a threat. It should be seen about making sure we are doing the jobs we said we'd do, and we are representing the people. So to me, it's let's get that victory of that deal done. And that's going to be the next bit that we have to do, so that we can all come together to celebrate actually rolling back what Royal Mail wanted to do to us. Because what they want to do to us is what they're trying to do in all the other industries. So it's great that we've stood up, and it's great to see so many women taking it, onto the picket line and at the front of that. Because at the end of the day, we are strong, and usually we're the strongest person in our family, even though some of the blokes mightn't think that as well. So just make sure that we are making sure that we're looking after each other. And we'll be there, and at the end of the day, we'll win the dispute. I know we will. And we'll come out of it stronger. And for some of us getting nearer, I'm not actually there. I'm not as old as some of the others. I just was very active from the age of 18. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So that's where my political background comes from, Liverpool as well. So good luck, everyone. Let's keep the fight up. Let's stick together. And let's make sure we make a difference in the union, in our community, and in society as well. thanks, Chris and Kate. It's been great to sit and have this chat with everyone. And there is life in the union, and there is a future in the union, which can't be anything other than positive. So that's all I've got to say in terms of where we go over the next couple of weeks or months. Okay, thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Jane. Really appreciate that. I think the next speaker to give her a closing message is Angela. If I could ask you to pop yourself off mute, Angela, and give you a closing message. You're ready. You saw it coming, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm off mute. I don't want to echo what all the other ladies are saying, so I will try and come at a different angle. Me becoming a branch secretary straight away from knowing nothing of the union, me putting my all in it, learning, teaching myself, putting myself on courses, and having the support of my branch. I just want to say it can be done, from going from nothing to now being a branch secretary, to now being the chair of the Southeast Division, to now being the chair of the London region, and also being the NEC Women's. So going from nothing to having those 4 positions in the union, what I want to get out there to all women is it can be done. Yeah, there's no such word as can't. It's 2 words put together. Can, but wish not to. So if you put your mind to it, as I would say, we run, as I should say, Jane said, we run the household. We're the head of the household, even though we don't, say it. So why couldn't you run a unit? Why couldn't you run the women of the branch? It can be done. There's a few women in each offices. They feel they're standing alone. You're not alone. We're all here. We'll unite together. Yeah. So don't ever say it cannot be done, because it can, because I'm sitting here, proof. So I'd just like to say to women out there is, if you want a voice, stand up and speak the voice.
That's brilliant, Angela. Thanks so much. Next person, just to give their final message, is Rowan. Over to you, my friend.
Yeah, I was just going to acknowledge it can be daunting. We do work in a male-dominated workforce. I remember when I first started as Women and Youth Rep, and I stood up in front of my first work time learning to introduce myself. And I prepared a little speech saying to all the women and young workers out there, and I looked up and my eyes were scanning across the room trying to find a woman or a young person, and the whole room just burst out laughing. But obviously we are here, and in a male-dominated workforce, of course, that means that across the country over the years, more than likely the majority of reps have been men, and most officers have only ever known their rep to be a man. And I remember when I was first going around speaking to everyone in the office one by one, and someone asked me if I was the rep's PA, and that was really funny. And I remember another time when I went to go and chat to a new starter and get him joined up to the union, and he was like, "Oh, you are not what I expected," when they said the union was coming to speak to me. And yeah, obviously I'm not some big 6'6" guy with a booming voice. I'm a short ass. I'm a woman. I'm in my 20s. And in years gone by, maybe a lot of people couldn't have imagined having someone like me as their rep, but it just shows, however far we still have to go, that we have come a long way already in society and in our workplaces. If I can put myself forward and people in my office can trust me and say, yeah, that's who I want to be my rep, then whoever you are, you can put yourself forward and you can get stuck in. And a lot of people say to me, "Oh my God, what a time to become a rep in the middle of all that's happening. You must be crazy." And they're right, it's not an easy time. But like I said earlier, God, if not now, then when are you going to do it? You owe it to yourself to give it a go. So yeah, I would say my last thing, whoever you are, go up to your rep tomorrow and ask them, how can you help us win this dispute? There's always something to do. Many hands make short work, and you might surprise yourself the things that you end up doing and the things that you can do, because you can.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Absolutely brilliant. Our final panelist who I want to ask to give a closing message is our president, Karen Rose. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Chris. So, look, I'm going to say it's an honour and a privilege to represent your peers, right? And I have had the honour and privilege of doing that for a very long time. And every day, every morning, I get up with the aim of making a difference to people's lives. And some days are more successful than others, but actually that's still the aim, and you just keep on getting up and carrying on doing it. However, I believe very, very strongly that we'll be ultimately defined by the legacy we leave. And so succession planning and ensuring that we've got people coming behind us to ensure that the movement and our union stays vibrant and alive, and we've got young people coming through, that is so, so important. And what I notice when you're talking to an awful lot of women out there, a lot of women will say they haven't got time to make a difference, or they're not sure what the contribution that they can make is. And what I would say to anybody, but particularly to women out there, is that sometimes you're unsure what contribution you can make, but actually you should just make a contribution. Stand up and speak up for what you can believe in, because actually every single one of us makes a difference. Every single one of us makes a difference every day and can make a difference every day. So I'm just saying, speak up, stand up, come forward, get involved, because there's room here for all of us.
Thanks, Karen. That's absolutely brilliant. So I suppose, Kate, I'm going to give you a moment to sum up the session and give your final message as well.
On this International Women's Day, first of all, thank you, Chris, as always supportive in what we want to do. And just to say, I think it's been an absolutely fantastic session. And I think we all agree that, the last year hasn't been easy, and it's one that we will never forget. We've had disputes on both sides of the union. However, I think for this International Women's Day, marking the dispute and the contributions that not only the women on our panel this evening have had, but also the women out there in the workplaces, the families of our reps, of our members, our female members, you all have a place in the CWU and you all matter. And I'm just really pleased that we've marked it today for this occasion. And just to say, we do have women's leadership courses for those that want to possibly become representatives, or for those who are representatives. So please get in touch, talk to your branch if you think that's something that you may want to move forward with. But ultimately, my closing sentence is going to be this. The CWU is your union, and there is a place for you in it. If you don't step forward, you will never know. If you do step forward, it's amazing, the training and the opportunities that you can bring. Thank you.
So thank you to you, Kate. Thank you to all of our panelists. But as Kate said there, we want to double down on the fact that there's so many brilliant women down there, whether they're members, local representatives, branch officials, regional secretaries, our executives and indeed officers. So thank you to all our panelists and every single one who's doing a job out there on behalf of the union. We hope you enjoyed the session and think it's been an excellent one, and we'll all catch you very, very soon.